Let's go to Annelise Nielsen now, our Washington correspondent. Annelise, great to see you. It has been a flurry of activity there in the United States. We first learned of this through various news outlets reporting it. What's been the reaction?
Look, the reaction so far is people here seem as surprised as anyone else that this has come to this point at this particular point in time. But really, it's not surprising when you look at the amount of advocacy from the Australian side with the US government. And frankly, Australia doesn't ask for much from the US. And so it was being heard at the highest levels that this continued to be raised. It was noted that there was this bipartisan support in Australian Parliament. It was noted that this continued to be raised, including, it seems, when Anthony Albanese visited with Joe Biden. It wasn't part of the official announcements at the time, and in response to questions here that these issues were being raised consistently behind the scenes. So this has been a long time coming to find some kind of resolution. And at this point in time as well, it was almost incumbent on the Biden administration to do something, because it seemed quite likely that this was something Donald Trump would do if he came back into office. And so why not make the offering now and solidify that as a decision by the Biden administration? The sheer amount of time that had passed as well. And Barnaby Joyce wasn't wrong there either, in that he was saying that there was bipartisan support among members of Congress. But what's interesting with this is these weren't middle of the road politicians that were supporting this. These were the basically far left and far right of their respective parties that were advocating on this. And both the Democrats and the Republicans have become increasingly beholden to the extremes in their party. So this is why they're trying to shore up support amongst their own people. It's a nice way to have some goodwill among their own parties as they're going into what's going to be a very fractured election campaign. But the other thing to consider here is just how unusual a circumstance this is, that this is going through the Mariana Islands. That, as we've heard, is ostensibly because Julian Assange didn't want to step foot on American soil. And that's a very real consideration. And again, another good reason why a lot of people on Assange's side are still being kind of circumspect at the moment, because this isn't dotted I's and crossed T's just yet. There is a lot of power for these federal judges. And even in a situation like this with huge international ramifications, they need it signed off. And so they would have done all the calculations on which judge would most likely have this on the docket. It can vary wildly, but they'd know their options. They'd know their best and worst case scenario. And you only need to look at what happened to Hunter Biden's plea deal falling apart to know that they can think that they've got everything tied up in a neat bow, and then something can come in and completely upend their plans. But the other consideration here is they would have had some strong assurances that they weren't going to try and spring him with any other charges. They weren't going to say, no, you're fine, you've got an amnesty for this, and then guess what, we're going to hit you with something else just to get you because we want to get you, because that is a very real risk, especially in the US legal system. If they want to find something on you, they can usually do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Annelise, hold there for a minute for me.